Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this music, we'll do an all dancing episode of the bathtub someday. That's it's time for an episode which has no title. We're just going to talk about a computer game. That's all. That's the whole point of this episode. And we're not going to do it very often, but I don't play that many computer games. But I did in the past, since through the pandemic, I have played and actually completed. This is one of the high points of my literary career. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that today. First, I wanted to mention that we do have, the shadowy nebulous organization of ACMA. Amazon, the Washington Post can kiss my ass. Now these days we want to like newspapers, but we don't want to like the Washington Post because they're run by Jeff Bezos. And we want to buy our books from bookshop.org or pals.com. And I was told to tell you that by the nebulous, shadowy people at ACMA. That having been said, I think I can get rid of this now. Because it throws off some reason it throws everything off. I don't know why that is. And talk about, ACMA, that's just nice and framed there. Talk about this game. I'm a fan of computer games. I don't play them much. When my son was growing up, we used to play a lot of these on weekends when he was with me. And I have to say the Zelda games I sort of liked and was perplexed by pretty much over the last 25 years of my life. My son used to play some of the handheld Game Boy games. One of the first games we ever used to play together was the Wind Waker. I believe it was called the Wind Waker, where he's riding boats all across this big ocean and fighting all these monsters. I found the Zelda games incredibly difficult. And one of the most interesting things to me about computer games is how incredibly fucking hard they are for adults. And kids can somehow figure things out. At the same time, I don't think any kids could figure all of these games out because they're so tricky that even when, whenever I played them, even when I played those primitive early Zelda games on our Game Boys, and particularly when we go on holiday, we'd take it with us for the planes, I could not figure out the simplest things unless I went online. Online stuff would give you all the answers, how to find something or find some whistle or something like that. And I thought all of them like that. Anyway, when the pandemic hit and we were stuck at home, one of the first things I did was I said, what the hell, I'm going to play, I'm going to pick up this new Zelda game because I'd heard it was pretty good. So I got the little deal from Nintendo. And if you're going to play a game, you can't play it in the bathtub. First of all, you just can't play it in the bathtub. You'll kill yourself. You'll electrocute yourself. But when you do play, you kind of have to play 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. And that's sort of what I did for a large part of the pandemic. It's quite absorbing, and it doesn't, especially when the whole world's falling apart and your country's run by a maniac and a bunch of his maniac friends. It's kind of nice because you don't really think about anything except punching the right buttons. What I like about computer games, and this one particularly, we talked a bit about like Uncharted. I know very few games these days, but they're kind of more traditional narratives. So they're like little movies where occasionally you get in and start shooting people. The Zelda games have a different way of telling stories. So they plant you at a time, and you wake up with this character Link. Usually, in every one that I've played, you wake up after this bad guy Ganon has taken over the world. It's just like every single fantasy novel ever done. Lord of the Rings, Saruman, or the one-eyed guy, or whatever it is. He's taken over the whole world. Everything is falling apart. It's all withering. Everything's dying. And everywhere you go in this one, there's these big jelly creatures that have fiery jelly with eyeballs that have swallowed things up. And sometimes you have to shoot their eyeballs to get rid of them. And there's bad demons running all over the once pristine and beautiful world of, I think it's Hyrule. Anyway, it's. I don't think I could have gotten through the first few chapters of this unless I looked online. I just did not know where to find things, and they would tell you what to do, and I had no idea what they were saying. This is a huge map. It's basically a gigantic map, and if you want to really you just kind of need a little bit of breathing space and just go somewhere, you basically can walk around this kind of huge landscape with all these different places, and you have to open up all these towers, and eventually, and there's lots of there's 120, I think, dungeons where you have to go in and find your way through some puzzle. I had to check at least half of those. I had to check online to find how to solve them. That's how bad. I mean, I'm so bad. I mean, sometimes you just shoot arrows at leaves and they set fire to them, and then something opens up. I could do those without checking, but a lot of them were quite difficult and frustrating. Everywhere you go, you're fighting these different demons and creatures, and then you go to these four major dungeons that are like, one's a giant elephant and one's a giant bird and so forth. And just to get to those, you had to follow through a whole series of trials. You had to go tell somebody and make somebody a sandwich, and you got to do some, and I had no idea what was going on. I'd get through halfway through one of those, and I'd have to check online. So it's almost a collaborative game that you're playing with the human race that plays these stupid games. But I found it first really difficult and frustrating, and I gave it up for weeks at a time. I would just say I'm fed up with this thing. And then there were certain creatures that were really hard to kill. Particularly, there were these guys named Lionels. They were like centaurs that they could shoot arrows at you, and they could do all sorts of stuff. And I think I played for months, and I just didn't want to go near these guys. And finally, eventually, I finally learned how to get them. But some of it was really difficult, and I would have to really just research. It was like researching an essay, finding out how to kill some monster, or just to find out where the hell you were going. But anyway, at the end, by the time I got to the end, I have to say there's a lot of things I like about this game. And one of them is that you're continually opening up new ways of looking at this whole landscape and this world. The story is chosen by you, but the story can only go in really one direction. And it's a really interesting sort of way of telling stories. I find computer games really interesting narratives. I think it is pure candy. I understand that. It's just pure candy. There's not almost a glimmer of human reality in these things, which is probably good at a time when there's too much human reality in the world. But so they're totally the most escapist form of art I've ever seen, and yet it's continually surprising. And as you go through the landscape, what's also interesting is as you understand how the world works a bit more, you end up going back to the places you were at the beginning of the game, and you actually understand them better. For example, there's certain things that you do all through it, like find these little Korok seeds, these little guys with funny masks, and there's like 900 of them. And after a while, you learn how to find the puzzles to find where they are. And sometimes you just spend a day doing that. You just leave the story altogether. But while you're doing that, other elements of the stories and other characters start to show up, and other trials appear. So you're playing several games at once, and it's a very complicated, interesting way of telling stories. I don't have anything more to say except that I beat the damn guy. I beat whatever that giant Ganon was at the end on the horse. I did it. I'm not proud of it, but if Donald Trump's ever elected president again, I swear to God, I'll probably get it. I'll probably play it again because now I know how to play it. All right, I just wanted to say that happy bathing. Every day you should spend 20 minutes or an hour doing total bullshit. Okay, total bullshit. And you don't have to make any apologies for it. All right, I'm going to go out with this great music.